Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're in a 2021 F-150 with a 3.5 in it, and I want to do a follow-up video on my F-150 engine comparison video so you guys can decide which engine is best for you based on the actual specs and facts and pros and cons of each engine instead of just my opinion while driving it. And remember, I picked the 5.0, but that's just my opinion, so remember that. So it doesn't mean that it's the best, but it's the best for my purposes. And if you guys have any of these engines, I want you to share your ownership experiences in the comments because I do like reading you guys' comments. Also, I'm going to answer some of the most frequently asked questions at the end of this video for any of you guys wondering. And also, I want to take a second to say, please subscribe if you're not already. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. So I'm really looking forward to reaching the first YouTube milestone of 1,000 subscribers, right? So if you enjoy my little videos, please do subscribe. But instead of me just sitting here in a parking lot, I want to go cruising so you guys actually have something to look at. But I do have a little paper under here. I will admit I do have a cheat sheet because I can't remember everything. But let's first start off with the 3.3 liter V6. So for the pros for that engine is that it's perceived to be really reliable because it's just a naturally aspirated V6. And I think it's been pretty reliable in the F-150s. Again, share your ownership experiences below if you guys have that engine. But that's the first pro. Also has a smooth power delivery. So it's just, you know, it's smooth throughout the RPM band. There's no huge shove in torque from like a turbo or anything. And then also it's the least expensive engine. So if you want to save the most money possible, the 3.3 is the least expensive. And then it has good enough power. It's not fast or anything, but it definitely has good enough power for a pickup truck. I mean, pickup trucks like 20 years ago were extremely slow, so you know, this truck is not slow by any stretch of the imagination. And then also it runs perfectly fine on 87 octane. So you'll see like the EcoBoost engines will say like, oh, to get the best MPG and the best horsepower and torque, you have to be on 91 or 93. Well, the 3.3 liter runs just fine on 87. You don't have to put high octane fuel in it. The cons on that engine, there's not a lot of power and torque, so it's not the best towing engine either. And then if you were towing with it, you'd have to be really high in the RPM band to actually, you know, get moving. So that's kind of one disadvantage. Then also, it has the same MPG as the 2.7 liter engine, and the 2.7 is a much better engine in my opinion. You do have to kind of work the engine to get the power out of it, so that could be a con for people. And then also has V6 sound. I mean, a lot of the F-150 engines are V6s, so that's not necessarily a huge deal, but it does have a V6 sound. Next up, we're going to talk about the 2.7 liter. So the 2.7 liter has proven to be a pretty reliable engine so far. It's a very lightweight engine, so it's not, you know, super heavy in the front. And then it's a very tunable engine, so you can just get a simple off-the-shelf tune, get a lot of power, a good map for like towing and everything like that. There's also lots of punch down low when you're driving around town, so that engine is extremely quick to zoom around town. It's not like it's working hard to get around. And it tows decent. I'll put on the screen a tow chart of all the different engines later. But also it's less expensive than the higher end engines. You know, it's just one upgrade from the base engine. And then elevation, since it is turbo, won't affect the acceleration as much as it would a naturally aspirated engine. For some of the cons, it has a V6 sound, of course. That's a con for me. It might not be a con for you. And then it's not as powerful as the other engine. You know, the 3.5 is like the 2.7, but better, you know. Since it is a turbo, there's more parts to go wrong. But again, I think this engine has been pretty reliable. And then premium fuel is recommended to get the most horsepower and torque and MPG. So that's also a con because you have to put premium to get all your power, if that makes sense. All right, next up, I want to talk about the 5.0 engine, which is my favorite. Although the PowerBoost is very, very close second. I mean, the PowerBoost is a really good engine. But anyway, 5.0, smooth power delivery, V8 sound, which is fantastic in my opinion. It has good towing capability. It's perceived to be very reliable because it's naturally aspirated V8 and doesn't have to work as hard as the turbos, even though the RPM is higher, but that's just what the old guys say. But it feels right in a truck, in my opinion, to have the 5.0. It just fits the truck's character a lot better. And then also, for being a V8 truck, it has pretty decent fuel economy. Like, it's not very far off the 3.5. Acceleration, especially top end and highway speeds, the 5.0 can really pull on highway speeds. It's definitely a fast truck. And then if you guys are into like speed and everything, most people are into towing and all that stuff, but if you guys are into speed, You can do a supercharger kit on the 5.0s relatively easily. And then 87 octane won't affect the acceleration and stuff as much as it would in a turbo engine. Now for the cons on the 5.0, towing heavy loads does require use of RPM like I mentioned before. Let's say you're going up a steep grade and you're towing a heavy trailer, your RPMs will be like maybe around like 4,000, 4,500, trying to get up that hill, whereas the 3.5 with all its low end torque will easily be able to move up the hill a lot easier, if that makes sense. When you're driving around town, it's not as punchy as the turbo engines. Since it is a smooth power delivery, it's not super punchy. And then also MPG, like I mentioned before, it's good for a V8 truck, but it's not its strong suit. I think the 5.0 is the worst MPG for the F-150s. I think all the other engines get better. But when you're towing, the 3.5 and 5.0 is pretty similar, actually, to be honest. And then one other thing is that since it is naturally aspirated, the acceleration would suffer at altitude. So like if you're in Denver, Colorado, I'm sure the turbo engines will feel a lot better than it would if you were in the 5.0, because elevation affects naturally aspirated engines more. Next up, we're going to talk about the 3.5, which is a favorite amongst many F-150 people, as I learned in my comments. Pros for 3.5 is the acceleration. It's obviously very fast. It has effortless power, diesel-like torque, 500 pound-feet of torque at such a low RPM. So it's effortless when you drive it. Very tunable as well. It is a turbo engine, so you can get a lot of power from just the tune. Also, it's a quiet and smooth engine. It really is. The 3.5, like I'm driving right now, it's a very smooth, quiet engine. It also has the highest tow rating. It has effortless towing, like I mentioned before. You don't have to use RPMs. You have a lot of low-end torque, so you can effortlessly tow a lot of weight. Let's get out onto the street instead of driving around this parking lot before people start looking at me crazy. But anyway, another good thing is decent gas mileage. 3.5 does get pretty decent gas mileage when you're cruising around normally. When you're towing, it gets the same as 5.0. And since it is a turbo, elevation shouldn't affect the acceleration as much. It's a fairly reliable engine. 3.5 has been around for a while. It's a pretty reliable engine, I'd say. Again, share you guys' owner experience below, but I feel like it's been a pretty reliable engine. Next up, let's talk about the 3.5 PowerBoost. The PowerBoost has all the same pros and cons as the 3.5, except for that it's actually faster than the 3.5 normal, and you get the Pro Power on board, which is really cool. You can hook up like a barbecue grill and all this other stuff. Not that you would need to do that, but you can do that. And then for the cons on that engine, it does have additional complexity since it is a hybrid setup, and then also added weight for the hybrid setup. So the 3.5 PowerBoost is, like I said, a very close second for me, but I still prefer the 5.0. Looks like we got a lot of people in service today. Last up on our list, we have the 3-liter diesel Powerstroke. And I never got to drive that engine, unfortunately. I don't know how it drives or anything like that. But I've heard that it's a very smooth engine. And then also it's good for towing. Diesels are designed for towing, even though the 3.5 still tows more, so that kind of sucks. And another pro for the diesel is that it gets the best MPG out of all the engines, at least on the highway. Cons for the diesel is that it's very expensive. It's an expensive option. And to be honest, you're paying more money for the diesel just to get better gas mileage, to be honest, because the 3.5 is faster, tows more, and cheaper. So I don't know, the 3-liter diesel is kind of like a weird option. If you guys have the 3-liter diesel, let me know what your ownership experience is like in the comments below. But I'm not really down with that engine. I haven't driven it yet though, so I don't know. All right guys, so the first question I want to answer is which engine is the best for towing. I kind of mentioned this in the pros and cons, but 3.5 has the best towing capability. The 5.0 is next. It has very good towing capability as well, if you're okay with waiting for the power a little bit later in the RPM. And the diesel has pretty good towing capability as well, and being a diesel, it's kind of designed for towing. The 2.7 and 3.3 can tow fine as well, but those have just a lower rating. And like I mentioned before, I'll put up the chart. Next question is, which engine is the fastest out of all the engines? So obviously the 3.5 PowerBoost is the fastest engine. And then next up is the 3.5, and then the 5.0, then the 2.7, then the 3.3, and then the diesel. The 3.5 and the 5.0 are close once you're already rolling at highway speeds, but from a standstill, the 3.5 with all the torque takes off a lot better than the 5.0 does. Next up is which engine gets the best MPG. Obviously the diesel gets the best MPG on the highway. Next up is a PowerBoost 3.5, then the 2.7, then the 3.3 liter, then the 3.5 regular engine, and then the 5.0. And the 3.5 and the 5.0 kind of depends on what you're doing, because in some cases the 3.5 gets worse MPG than the 5.0 does. So I just consider MPG to be kind of like a wash between those two. But if you drive very, very smooth, maybe the 3.5 gets a little bit better. Next up is which engine is most reliable. I want the engine that will last the longest. So the 3.3 and the 5.0 is perceived to last the longest since it's naturally aspirated. But the 5.0 does have a belt-driven oil pump now and some other stuff, cylinder deactivation, all that garbage. So who knows what that's going to be like in the future, but those are perceived to be the most reliable engines. And then the 3-liter diesel, I don't even know much about that engine. I don't know if it's reliable in the long term. It just came out recently, so I don't know what's going on with that one. 3.5 twin turbo has been a pretty reliable engine for Ford. There is some stuff with like the timing chain rattling and stuff like that, and I've actually experienced firsthand myself a 3.5 on our used lot that the timing chain rattled when I started up on a cold start. But 3.5 seems to be pretty reliable. 2.7 seems to be a pretty reliable engine, other than that crappy plastic oil pan that starts to leak later, which kind of sucks. But they're all pretty decent engines. You just have to get which one is the best for you. And then last up, does the 5.0 make you more of a man? No, it doesn't. 5.0 is a great engine. I love the way it sounds and feels, but it does nothing as far as that's concerned. Hope you guys enjoyed my little follow-up video, going a little bit more technical and in-depth with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I want to hear what all of you guys think, your ownership experience. I love interacting with you guys, so please do comment. Subscribe if you're not. We're almost at 1,000, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thought I'd give you guys a quick little acceleration, just because, you know, we're in a 3.5. You know, you gotta... Ooh. I tell you, the 3.5 is nothing to play with. I love the 5.0, but the 3.5 is nothing to play with.